All right, it's finally time to talk about one of the exciting releases for this year. And you can see it's a foldable. It is the larger version of the foldable, but the reason why this is so exciting is because this is a foldable from Google. We've known that this smartphone has been incoming for quite some time now, and now that it's finally here, I can just tell you plainly, I am thoroughly enjoying this device. So let's go ahead and talk about my first couple of days with it so far, not quite a week, which is why it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This is the Pixel Fold Day 1. Now, as you can see, this is a day 1 video, and the reason why it's a day 1 video is because I haven't even had this phone for a full week yet. I've only had it for maybe 3 or 4 days, so I wanted to give my thoughts after 3 full days of using it, because once it arrived at my doorstep, I really made this my main device, and it might be my main device moving forward. The first thing you'll notice is through the design. The fact that the phone is actually flush when it is closed. There's no gap in the screens whatsoever, and the materials just feel extra premium in a way. This phone almost feels a little bit more premium than the Pixel 7 Pro, if you can believe that. And probably one of the reasons why is because the Pixel Fold feels very substantial in more ways than one. Obviously, you have the cover display, and we're going to talk pretty extensively about that in a little bit. The actual hinge, the outer portion of the hinge is over here with the shine that actually takes on fingerprints really easily. And the backing also takes on fingerprints pretty easily as well, but it's not too hard to actually clean that off. It's the shinier bits that have more of that problem, as you can see with the camera bump up here. And speaking of the camera bump, I have to admit, I kind of prefer this kind of camera bump over the visor that Google has been using on the regular Pixel devices. I actually like that this stands out a little bit more rather than trying too hard to sort of blend into the actual body of the phone. The power button and volume rocker are pretty big as well, really easy to feel as you just sort of glide onto the right side of the device. And it's in that power button that we have a fingerprint reader, but there is also face unlock, which I can show you here. Right there, unlocked by face, then you swipe up and get into the interface. The phone just feels really good, honestly. The Pixel Fold is about the same weight as the Galaxy Z Fold 4. It's just that the phone, being wider given the display, it just feels more substantial. I can still grip the phone very comfortably, especially if I'm going to be multitasking or anything like that, and left to right reach is not too bad. It's a 5.8-inch display that also rocks 120Hz refresh rate, although the smooth display setting automatically changes it between 60 and 120, so you can't really force it at that high refresh rate, and it's actually going to be the screen that you'll end up using the most, at least in my opinion, because that's what happened with me. Seriously, I ended up using this phone closed pretty much 90% of the time that I have used it over the last 3 or 4 days. As far as an everyday phone is concerned, there are a lot of people out there who think that our bar phones are getting way too big, and they were hoping for something maybe around 6 or sub 6 inches. That's exactly what this is. It's just that it's a lot thicker because obviously it can unfold. But if you ask me, that's a big deal because it makes the Pixel Fold one of the more accessible smartphones for those that don't necessarily need the big screen, but they do want to have it there for those few times that they might want to just blow things up. And you know what? After a couple of days of using the Pixel Fold as my main, the aha moment has finally arrived. It's not just the size and the shape of the Pixel Fold, it's the screen. More importantly, the aspect ratio of it, and the aspect ratio that it gives the larger display because of that shape. Compare that to other foldables like the Galaxy Z Folds, where the display on the outside is a little bit more narrow, so things do feel a little bit different there. The other phone that might have this same general shape is the Oppo Find N2, but that one is smaller than this phone in all aspects, so that also feels like you're kind of compromising when you're using that outer display in particular. Here though, never felt that way whatsoever. And so it makes it feel like opening up the phone is a treat and not a necessity. There are times when you would want to because you're just looking to enjoy things like larger versions of YouTube videos, or you're reading stuff, or you're catching up on the news, but you're doing it in a way that is much more intentional because that's when you want the big screen. For all other times though, this is literally all you need, and it does its job very well. So let's talk about that tablet experience. When you open up the Pixel Fold, you have a 7.6-inch tablet display that blows everything up in a very satisfying manner. Reading, enjoying, watching, it's all good on here, especially YouTube videos, which is what I've done the most recently. Admittedly, I haven't played a whole lot of games on the Pixel Fold so far. I did throw on Honkai Star Rail and Marvel Snap for a few different rounds, but I haven't really played a whole lot on here. The thing is, it should be just fine on the Pixel Fold no matter which screen you're using, because both of them do 120 Hz refresh rate. And the Tensor G2, while it may not be the absolute most powerful processor out there, we have already proven in other Pixel smartphones that it does a fine job of running those games. It does run pretty warm though, as we expect with Tensor processors. But we do have to talk about this crease, and you can see it as the light shines on there. It is definitely there. It is definitely noticeable. However, just like with any other foldable, while the crease is there and noticeable, you tend to look past it after a little bit of time. I'm sure there are going to be some conversations around the bezels, and yes, there is quite a bit of black bar around this screen. I find it to be mostly okay. I do wish it was all screen all the time, but that's something we all wish from all of our devices. Here's the thing though, you do kind of get all screen all the time because the camera for the inner display is in the bezel. So you don't actually have a camera punching into your display. You literally get the full screen real estate, which is not really something that we see on like the Galaxy Z Folds or anything like that. So if you want it all screen all the time, you get it here. You just have to compromise a little bit by having this bezel. All right, well, the tea is ready, so why don't we go ahead and have a little bit of a tea break for this video. First thing I want to say is, well, I know there are a lot of videos probably coming out right now about the Google Pixel Fold, and I want to thank all of you for coming to watch mine, to hang out with me. I just want to start off with some gratitude for this tea break. I'm back to the Pinky Up Boba Tea. It's literally a tea that's trying to recreate the flavor of the brown sugar boba drinks that you might see just all over TikTok and Instagram and all of that. And especially since I tried to lower the sugar and just carbs in general, this is a really good alternative because I don't really drink boba or sugary drinks at all anymore. So this being sweetened with monk fruit instead of like actual brown sugar is perfect for me. And if you haven't noticed by now, when I do these tea breaks, the main reason why I want to keep doing them is because even in the middle of filming videos like this, I need to take a bit of a break myself because the tech just keeps coming in non-stop and the work just doesn't end. That's the whole reason why burnout tends to happen and whatnot. So having these little breaks with you guys and being able to drink some tea with y'all, it is also very good for me. Which brings me to the reminder that I want to give everybody today. Just so you know, and you can probably see it here, I am filming this on a Sunday night, getting ready for when this video is meant to come out. I'm literally working on a weekend, so I'm going to give a reminder to all of you that I am constantly giving myself today. Do what you can. Chances are on any given day, the things that we hope to accomplish are a long list of tasks, but we end up beating ourselves up because that task list does not have all of the check marks that we want. After all, we only have so many hours in the day, and even more importantly, we only have so much energy to give. Whatever it is that you need to do right now, maybe after you watch this video or the slew of Pixel Fold videos that are coming out right now, just remember, you got this. Do what you can, and remember to appreciate what you have done. And that should do it for today's tea break. I hope you enjoyed this little break in the middle of all of your Pixel Fold viewing because I hope you come for the tech, but you stay for the tea. All right, with all of that said, let's get back into the video. The thing is, these screens wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for the software taking advantage of it properly. And you know what? Google deserves a round of applause right now for making some good moves on tablet software. We caught a glimpse of that with the Pixel tablet, but it moves over to here, and by moving it over to the Pixel Fold, that whole tablet interface, the big screen interface, has now moved into the realm of portability. You can see here that pretty much all of the elements are being rendered in a way that still provides a lot of information and a lot of workable space without feeling too cluttered or too cramped. Google also has a thing against, I guess, sharp edges, so everything is rounded corners, which are easier on the eyes, and they do make it for a pretty inviting and accessible experience. Now on the Pixel Fold, we have the little dock that makes it easier to move among different applications and trigger multitasking so that you can move one app to one side and one app to the other. One thing you'll notice here though is that 2 apps at a time is kind of your max. You can't put one in the corner or anything like that. That being said, I never really found myself using 3 apps all at once, unless it was like YouTube in a floating window and then 2 productivity apps, but that was like the extent of it. 2 apps at once, especially with the way that they are rendered on the Pixel Fold, should be more than enough for most. If you're doing one application at a time on the inner display, obviously you're going to run into situations where the app is not optimized for that. Instagram is always the go-to example for this kind of thing. You can tap on either side to move it over, so it might be easier to work with it. But have you noticed that when I brought it over to the right side, it is right along that crease? It's literally like getting the outer display, which I already said is pretty much perfect for everyday usage, general usage, and then when you open up, you get 2 times that screen, literally, obviously. But it's because of that you are encouraged to multitask, because then everything will render out just fine, the way that you would expect it on a regular device, only now you got two of them. For me, that was the aha moment with the Pixel Fold, that any configuration of these screens provides a proper full experience, whether as a singular phone, whether as a multitasker, and of course, as a full-on tablet. They all feel like the proper experience, not compromised in pretty much any way. I did go a little bit overboard in a couple of situations, like for example having YouTube on one side and Instagram on the other, where it didn't really know which video to play, but we've seen that before in Android multitasking, that it has to prioritize one or the other. Or how about this, actually playing a YouTube video while playing Honkai Star Rail. This is going to be one thing that I probably will do more often than not. The best part is that the aspect ratios are pretty much where you would need them to be for either of those two apps. So far the experience of the Pixel Fold is pretty sublime. They have done a really good job of picking just the right dimensions that actually opens up more possibilities and feels a little bit better on a foldable like this compared to some of the competitors. Not to say that those experiences are any worse, it's just that this feels a little bit more accessible. And Google made sure that the performance would be able to keep up with all of these things I'm talking about. The Tensor G2 is the processor, you get 12 gigabytes of RAM and up to 512 gigabytes of storage. One thing that I do wish was a little bit better on here so far is the 21 watt wired charging. That just doesn't really seem like the speed that we would want on a ultra premium foldable like this. And for those of you out there who might be using this as like your main computing device, fast charging to top up the battery would definitely be appreciated. I know I feel that way. The one time that I went to check my battery stats, it seemed I had 5 hours of screen on time. And of course the first thought I had was, which screen is it? But then I realized that I have barely used the inner display unless I was trying to show somebody a picture I took of them, or any YouTube videos, or a funny post on Instagram, or anything like that. The majority of the time, probably 95% of the time that day, I was using the outer screen. Again, using the Pixel Fold like a proper everyday device. So that battery life stat doesn't surprise me because I was using this like any other phone, and that's what I get with those bar phones anyway. And finally, let's talk about the cameras. I did shoot some photos and videos with the Pixel Fold already, with the first impression that it's a Pixel camera, only this time you have a pop-out screen. In terms of sheer numbers, the Pixel Fold does fall into the trope of the foldables having somewhat lesser cameras than their Pro variants in the same lineup. The numbers are just slightly lower. You get a 48 megapixel main camera, and both the ultra-wide and the telephoto cameras are 10.8 megapixels, not the 12 that were on the Pixel 7 Pro. Most of the modes do return here, and that's great, but one that's missing is Action Pan, which may not bother you a whole lot. I certainly only used it a few times, but I just wanted to mention it's not here, even though long exposure is. For general shooting of photos and videos, you still have the essentials like the various stabilization modes that are great to see across all of the Pixel phones. Almost all of the cameras are capable of 4K video recording, and that excludes the camera that's on the inner display, or rather just above it because it's not in the inner display. For the most part, I feel like that's expected and maybe not too bothersome, because you're just going to be using this for maybe multitasking during a video call or just for video calls. Crazy hair, of course, with the wind. Anyway, for one thing, you don't ever really have to use the front-facing camera. It does do 4K video recording. It does take some pretty great photos, as a Pixel would. We almost never have to use it because you just open it up and use the rear cameras for everything. This is a Pixel, so pictures are probably going to be its strongest forte, and that seems to be the case. Pixel processing is definitely doing its work here. It's just that now you have more possibilities because you're not just relying on one camera or the other. You can almost use every single camera in any situation. You can tell the Pixel software is putting in its work on basically good enough cameras. It's just that now you get those cameras at a bunch of different angles, let's say, but that is the virtue of having a form factor like this. If you don't like what you're getting on the front camera, you can always open right up and use the rear cameras for probably better results. I got a level with y'all. I drink a lot of wine, so as much as I thought I was going to get dozens and dozens of pictures and video content here at the winery in Temecula Valley, that didn't happen. So I'm sorry. We'll fix that. We'll fix that later. I do plan on doing a rear-world camera test on this device, just like I do with many of the phones that are coming out right now. There's just so much work to do, but hopefully it won't take me too long to get there. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you know when that camera test finally comes out. Honestly, I'm just loving my time so far with the Pixel Fold. I didn't have too many doubts that this was going to be an enjoyable and ultimately useful device, and honestly, every foldable is fun in their own right. But what I love about the Pixel Fold is that it manages to marry a form of practicality with that fun, almost make them equal. Like I said many times in this video already, from the tablet to the multitasking to the outer display especially, it doesn't feel like any experience on the Pixel Fold has any significant compromises. So then you couple that practical hardware with, let's say, accessible software, because the Pixel software tends to be a little bit easier on the eyes and also easier to fathom, easier to understand compared to some of their competitors. And when you put all of that together, what we have here is a foldable that maybe a lot of people have been waiting for, even if it's going to cost them a real pretty penny to get one. Thankfully, there seem to be trade-in deals and also carrier deals that might make it a little bit easier to get this. So tell me, did any of you pick up the Pixel Fold? Did you go through the pre-order that happened during Google I/O? Because that's exactly what I did. Let me know all of that in the comment sections down below. And again, let me know what's going on, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging with me on this video. It was a hard one to make, especially on a weekend. So I just want to give another form of gratitude to all of you for hanging out with me today and watching my video. From there, though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much again for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.